Good morning, everyone. I'm here today, and I know it's 9/11, so it's kind of tough sometimes to say, should we be doing business on a day when it had such a crisis for so many, so long ago, but not long ago? It's still fresh in our hearts. That's a tough one. But what I want to talk today about are disruptions, choices, and reinventions, because that's what that particular day created for all of us. It created disruptions that made us rethink, am I just settling for a average daily life, or is there something more I want to do? We thought, wow, it could be gone tomorrow. It could be gone today. So why don't I just step into reinvention? And so a lot of people came out of that particular time with a lot of choices, as do many people when there are many, many life choices or life changes. Pardon me, let me get that straight. So I'm Marla Copal, and I help people reinvent their businesses or start their businesses because there's so many options. But what I try to do is to help the choices be clear, make them simple, make them work for you. Don't look at that big pie in the sky thing. Let's take it one step at a time, because that's all we did after 9/11 is we took it one step at a time to understand the whys, to understand what went on in our souls, to understand what was the outcome for us. It was a challenging time. So my site, if you want to connect, is successwithmarla.com. But let's talk about what's going on. So I remember that day. I was sitting at the end of, I was getting my son ready to go to school, and he was 10. So yes, I'm old enough to be his grandparent, but I'm his mom. And he was 10. And my husband called from his office and said, "You've got to turn the TV on." So we did. And it was very distressing. I had no idea what to tell my son. And then I had to take him to school. And I had to take him to school because I didn't have an option to stay home that day. Now I had a choice. I could have said no. But I had just started a class with 6 people from out of town. So I talked to my son about the need to support him, but I felt safe to send him to school with his teachers who had protocols around safety. And could he agree with me that he could be as safe at school as he could at home? Because none of us knew what was going on. That was a heavy decision to ask for a 10-year-old. Because we always wanted to cuddle up with our kids that day, and I did too. But I had 6 adults that had traveled in from the East Coast, the West Coast, and the Midwest for a training class that was supposed to help them start and launch a new job. Can you imagine what was going on in those 6 people's minds when they flew in the day before and they wake up the next day and they say, I could have been on that plane. It could have been a really disastrous day. Well, it was for them because now they're not even close to home. So I don't know how my son ultimately felt, but we had discussions every day, and he survived this change. And he helped me understand. He worked with me because he knew that I was the only anchor that these people had at this time to feel like they had some sort of a home, even though they were away from home. And let me tell you, those people made some heavy choices that week. One of them had a pregnant wife at home. He quit the job, rented a car, drove home. I honor him. He made a choice. Was it a disrupting choice? Did he need the job with a child on the way? Yes. But he couldn't imagine being without his family. That was a great choice for him. Now, was his direction after that? I don't know. But if he had but the thing was, we weren't doing long distance training then. That would not be the total disruption for us today. But 20 years ago, long distance education was just getting started. In fact, it was 3 years later, I got my master's in distance education. So it wasn't around in 2001. We had TVs. So nobody got much work done that day. One of the women couldn't find a flight home. Nobody could book flights home. So some of them had to wait 3 or 4 days. So they went through the training, but I don't know how much they retained. They tried to be present. It was pretty hard when you just don't know what's going on in the world. Now, so that's a memorable day for all of us. And we know there's disruption. And it's the same kind of disruption that happens when somebody in our families dies suddenly. They all have different maybe levels of emotional connection for you on a level of 1 to 10, but they're memorable. And because of that memorability, there is a sense of disruption that comes with that. Not a bad disruption, not always a good disruption. It's just a disruption. Because what you felt was status quo, you had to rethink, like, well, will it always be this way? Is there something else I could do, should do, want to do? So good morning. So what I'm trying to do today is to be sensitive, but to say that every day brings us a disruption. And every day brings us the choice to reinvent. And I still see a lot of people out there complaining that it shouldn't be this way. And that's the great time to get some gumption and just say, well, dang it, if it's not supposed to be this way, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to make my life different? How am I going to choose to do business differently? How am I going to choose to grow the skills that I need to grow? After that experience, I really had to understand that as an educator in that moment for a corporation, that my job was bigger than just education. That when souls traveled to be in my space, I had to be present for them 100% outside of the classroom, as well as inside the classroom, until they made choices. And so this was just a dramatic thing. It wasn't like, I interfered in their lives after that, but it was my responsibility to get them into a successful position. So it's something I've done often. And if they weren't ready for it at that time, the company was graceful with them and brought them back. But I think out of the 6, 4 stuck with it, and some of them are still there. So that's 20 years. That's good. But one of them had to call her mom, and she rented a car, and she had to drive a long distance. So the mom got on a bus, met her halfway. If you were a mom, you would have gotten in that car too. So, disruptions, they affect us. But your choices are your celebration. So I'm not telling you to celebrate today, but I'm saying that over the last 20 years, you've made some good choices. Have you celebrated them? Have they changed your life to the point that you really, really, really can celebrate where you're going? And now you have new choices. And those new choices are going to be memorable, just as memorable as a disaster. You got to have the memorable of success. So if you are at that point in your life again, where you're reinventing, don't have it be a disaster that stimulates that reinvention. Even though we know that happens. I can name a few in my life. But they weren't really disasters when I looked back. They opened up avenues of experience that I don't think I ever would have stepped into because I just didn't see them. They weren't in front of me. So no matter whether it's a slight change, a person's attitude, a disaster, remember, we all have an opportunity to invent how we will be in that moment and what choices we will make. So if you're really looking to grow your business or build your business, maybe before there's a disaster, we should look at where you are and see what options you have. They could be very, very simple. Or they could be, no, I'm going to stop. This isn't it for me. I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to drive home to my wife and we're going to figure it out together. Whatever it is, remember that days will be memorable. Many days will be memorable in your life. 9/11 is one of them, but they will also be disrupting. They will also be your opportunity to reinvent, and they are also your day of choice. So celebrate that you get to have choice. And don't ever give up a choice, because you have to look at the people that can't make those choices anymore. So don't get so caught up in how hard things are that you don't make a choice. So I know this felt a little heavy, but I just experienced 3 people yesterday, and 2 of them were making great choices, and one was all hung up on something that in their world, it was as big as this disaster that just happened for all of us on 9/11. But really, they woke up today. They were able to move forward. It wasn't a paralyzing situation. It wasn't an urgent, it wasn't an injury. It wasn't anything that was threatening. But they were taking it like it was. And that's when we create disruptions for ourselves. So just remember, the world has disruptions and we have individual disruptions, but we all have choice around how we handle those. So stay tuned in. If you just want some fun insight, I laugh a lot usually. I only do serious things maybe once or twice a year. So I'm going to try. So thank you for listening. And may you make the best of today. May the memories from today support you in making good choices and looking at disruptions as possibilities. See you later.